The story was supposed to be about redemption, but Logan realized this far too late. The narrative was nearly complete, with only the epilogue remaining. After Logan's death, Ethan's nightmare would end. He would finally be free to embrace his new love, unburdened and light. Ethan was the story's tormented protagonist, healed by a true hero after being shattered by Logan. And Logan himself was the villain, the toxic ex-boyfriend, the source of all of Ethan's pain. He stared at the dark, churning waves of the Pacific below, nudging a loose piece of gravel off the edge of the seawall with the toe of his shoe. It vanished into the foam without a trace. Just one more step, he thought, and all of Ethan's suffering, all of his own sins, would be swallowed just as completely. He closed his eyes, but instead of the expected rush of cold water and the finality of suffocation, a powerful hand clamped down on his shoulder, yanking him backward. He stumbled and fell onto the rough concrete. Opening his eyes, he saw only the blinding glare of the sun and a silhouette against it. A cool, detached voice pulled him sharply back to reality, stating that this area was not a designated place for dumping trash. Logan gasped for air, his heart hammering against his ribs as a faint ringing filled his ears. He thought he heard a soft, contemptuous scoff. As he opened his mouth to speak, the meaning of the man's words hit him. The trash was him. This kind of casual degradation had become the background noise of his life. He felt too exhausted to wonder who this man was or why he was here. None of it mattered anymore. Once his breathing steadied, he pushed himself to his feet and offered a nod of apology, telling the stranger he would find another place. But the narrow concrete pier was barely a yard wide, and the man stood squarely in his path, blocking any chance of escape. Logan's gaze drifted upward, snagging on a small, dark mole just above the man's Adam's apple. The sight triggered a cascade of fragmented images, dislodged from some forgotten corner of his memory. He remembered watching that mole rise and fall as the man swallowed, a strangely sensual movement. He thought, with a jolt, that he might have kissed it. A low chuckle confirmed his dawning suspicion. The man asked if he didn't remember him. He offered a hint. 2 years ago, a private lounge on Amber Street. The specifics were still a blur, but the context was enough. This was one of the stand-ins for Ethan he had kept. One of many. He must have come to gloat. Logan had never shown any of them kindness, treating them as disposable objects to be discarded with a small payment when he was done. But instead of mockery, the man said he was there to take him home. Logan stared, speechless. He finally managed to explain that he had no home, that he had nothing left, not a single dollar to his name. The man leaned in slightly, his eyes meeting Logan's. The sun was brilliant, casting a golden sheen across the water, but the man's gaze was utterly frigid. He nodded with slow understanding. He wasn't talking about Logan's home, he clarified. He was talking about his own. He was there to recycle the trash. Logan went with him. He knew there was no goodwill in the offer, but it hardly mattered. What was the worst that could happen? He was already a man with 1 foot in the grave. The man's sudden appearance had stirred something in his numb, desolate heart, a flicker of curiosity about what would happen next. By that evening, however, he found himself thinking that jumping into the ocean would have been a far kinder fate. The man's home was a 2-bedroom condo with a sweeping view of the ocean. Logan silently assessed the space. It felt lived in, a real home rather than a sterile investment property. Based on the location and decor, he tried to place the man among the sea of forgotten faces from his past, but came up empty. He had been with too many people in those 2 years. A time and place meant nothing. After making a bed on the sofa, the man went into the kitchen to cook. Logan leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, his eyes tracking the man's every move. The man asked if he was afraid of being poisoned. Logan shook his head with a faint smile, admitting that it was just that the man was captivating to watch while he cooked. It was the truth. He was impeccably built, handsome, with a commanding presence. If Logan were still the man he used to be, he would have already had him stripped bare. The sharp sound of a knife slicing cleanly through a carrot punctuated the thought. The man glanced over his shoulder, a smirk playing on his lips, though his eyes remained devoid of any warmth. He commented on how Logan's fundamental nature never seemed to change, still trying to charm his way through life even in his current state. Logan reflexively asked if it was working. The man didn't reply, returning his attention to chopping the vegetables with renewed force. He served 2 dishes and a soup, all perfectly prepared. Logan had been wary at first, but the warmth of the food spreading through his stomach stirred an unfamiliar sensation. Over the years, he'd had many lovers. Most took his money and vanished. Some clung on, hoping for more. A few had even resurfaced after his downfall to mock him. But no one had ever taken him home and cooked for him. Swallowing a mouthful of rice, he recognized the feeling: gratitude. He felt he should ask the man his name, but a gut instinct warned him that the question would provoke anger. He didn't know why. The man raised an eyebrow, a genuine hint of a smile finally reaching his eyes. It was a stunning sight. He looked nothing at all like Ethan. Logan began to doubt his own memory. Had he really kept a substitute who looked like this? The man's dark eyes reflected the warm light of the dining room, softening his cold demeanor. He advised Logan to eat up, remarking that the night would be long. Logan understood the implication and smiled knowingly. Half an hour later, that smile was gone. Even in his recent downfall, he had never suffered such humiliation. He was pinned to the mattress, the force of it stealing his breath. His curses turned to pleas, his arguments to bargains, until all that was left were choked sobs. This wasn't how he had imagined it. Just moments before, he had been the one in control, tracing the man's jawline with practiced ease. As his consciousness began to fray, he heard his own voice, begging him to stop. The man leaned close, his voice a triumphant whisper in Logan's ear. He said that Logan had been right. He was a good person, a merciful one, even. He was going to give him a chance. His voice, now a low, demonic murmur, posed a question. Did Logan remember his name? He promised that if Logan could just say his name, he would let him go. But he couldn't. He had no idea who this man was. The man's voice dripped with mock pity, telling him it was a shame before promising again that the night was very, very long. He was serious. If this didn't stop, Logan was going to die. He had never been this brutal with anyone, not even Ethan. His punishments had always been mixed with pleasure. His voice trembling, Logan began listing names, any name that came to mind. At first, the man would scoff at each wrong guess, but soon he fell silent, his actions a violent refutation of Logan's desperate attempts. Eventually, his voice gave out and his thoughts scattered. The salty sea breeze wafting through the open window did little to dilute the thick, metallic scent in the room. He forced his eyes open. In his blurry vision, that small mole on the man's throat was achingly close, rising and falling like a lone lighthouse on an endless sea. A spark ignited in his mind. Before he could process the thought, he had pushed himself up and kissed it. Caleb. The body above him went rigid. He had guessed right. It had been about 3 years ago. Ethan, after a decade of silent devotion and a year of official partnership, had told him it was over. He said he no longer loved him. They had a massive fight, culminating in Ethan screaming that loving Logan was the greatest stain on his life, that Logan was a fundamentally broken person who would die alone. Enraged, Logan had locked him in the basement for a week, a cruel and desperate act. When Ethan's new savior rescued him, Ethan was barely conscious. But Logan had been certain he'd come back. He never did. A person who has collected enough disappointment will not turn back. Logan hadn't cared at first. He drowned himself in alcohol and meaningless encounters. His company, Logan Industries, was at its peak, and sycophants lined up to offer him replacements for Ethan. He took them all, a chaotic period of trying to exorcise his frustration on facsimiles. But they were all just imitations. Eventually, he grew tired of it, his obsession with Ethan beginning to fade. That's when Caleb appeared. He wasn't a gift from a business associate. He was at the hotel bar for a friend's birthday, got lost looking for the restroom, and ran into Logan. An overeager partner, misreading the situation, had Caleb drugged and sent to Logan's suite. Logan wasn't in the mood that night, and Caleb's terrified tears only soured it further. He remembered speaking to him gently, reassuring him that it was a mistake and that he wouldn't be harmed. He asked his name. He complimented his physique. He asked if he was still feeling unwell. After those 3 simple questions, things had escalated. For the first time, it was Logan doing the soothing, talking him through the night. Their lives were worlds apart, but Logan slept better that night than he had in years. They kept in touch. Caleb would come over to his penthouse, and they would just talk for hours, the expensive suites time ticking away while they did nothing more than lie in bed and occasionally kiss. Logan, a man accustomed to hard liquor, found himself addicted to plain water. Caleb was sensitive and shied away from anything forceful, so most of their time was chaste. Logan realized he was developing an emotional dependency, a dangerous complication. He needed a reason to end it. Before he could find one, Caleb must have sensed his distance. He began trying to learn new, more provocative ways to please him, practicing them with a clumsy, blushing earnestness. It made things harder. His secretary informed him that Caleb hadn't touched a dime of the money Logan had given him. He wasn't there for the money, but money was all Logan had left to give. One day, after a particularly awkward attempt, Caleb apologized, his eyes red-rimmed, and promised he would do better next time. The phrase "next time" felt like a beautiful, impossible promise. Logan pulled him up, kissed him, and then called another lover, a pliable young man, to the room next door. Caleb had grabbed his shirt, his voice trembling as he pleaded with Logan not to see someone else, insisting he could do whatever was required. Logan had simply smiled, kissed his cheek one last time, and told him to get some rest. He didn't know how long Caleb stayed in that room, listening to the sounds from the other side of the wall. When Logan returned, sated, Caleb was gone. He never came back. Now, waking up 2 years later, Logan's body felt like it had been run over by a truck. Caleb was asleep beside him, an arm slung possessively over his waist. The story should have ended yesterday, Logan thought. How was it supposed to conclude now? In the original script, Caleb was a minor character, a footnote to illustrate Logan's depravity, with no resolution of his own. He reached for his phone on the nightstand. It was a new day, a day he wasn't supposed to have lived to see. How, then, would Ethan's nightmare end? He typed out a message, deleting and rewriting it several times before finally hitting send. He was shocked to see it go through. Ethan hadn't blocked him. Suddenly, the phone was snatched from his hand. He turned to see Caleb, awake and watching him, his once adoring eyes now filled with nothing but cold hatred. Caleb glanced at the screen, his voice like ice as he asked if Logan was still thinking about him. Even now. He offered to let Ethan hear the sounds Logan had made the night before. Logan didn't speak, instinctively reaching for the phone. This enraged Caleb. He smashed the phone against the floor, a tiny shard of plastic flying up to slice Logan's cheek. Logan raised a hand to his face, feeling the warm, wet slick of blood. Before he could react, Caleb grabbed him by the back of the neck and slammed his face into the pillow. The tearing pain returned. He tried to scream Caleb's name, but his throat was raw, the sound barely a whisper. Caleb bit down on his earlobe, his teeth grinding into the soft flesh. He spoke against his skin, wondering aloud if Logan's heart was just an empty cavity, if he had a heart at all. He accused him of looking for others while he was right there, again and again. And he had done that. The memory was sharp and painful. His skin grew cold, his eyelids heavy. He was probably dying this time. The plot had gone off script, but perhaps the ending would be the same. He wished he hadn't sent that message to Ethan. He hoped it wouldn't ruin his day. It was almost funny. After a life of countless beds, he was going to be killed by a former lover, and he couldn't even find it in himself to be angry. He had to say one more thing. Ethan's nightmare would end, and the storm in Caleb's heart deserved to cease as well. He forced his mouth open, squeezing the name out from his ravaged throat. Caleb. As always, the name had an immediate effect. The assault stopped. Caleb stared down at him, his expression unreadable in the dim light, likely a mask of contempt. "Sorry," Logan rasped. The next thing he knew, he was staring at a hospital ceiling, listening to a doctor berating Caleb in the hallway. The doctor was shouting about hemorrhage and a lack of self-control, asking Caleb if he was even human. Caleb remained silent. A long time later, he opened the door, his face a dark cloud. Logan felt a grim sense of satisfaction. His voice was a desert storm as he croaked out that he had no money to pay the medical bills. And if Caleb tried to force him, he'd jump from this very window on the 22nd floor. Caleb pulled a chair to the bedside. He informed Logan that his severance payment had been $6 million. Logan's satisfaction vanished, replaced by shock. He had given him that much? Most of the others got 2 or 3 million at most. Caleb was the highest paid, he mused. Well, except for Ethan, whose new husband had bankrupted him, turning a multi-billion-dollar fortune to dust. He had said the wrong thing. He fell silent, covertly watching Caleb peel an apple. He was just as striking as he'd been 2 years ago, maybe even more so. Without looking up, Caleb dropped a single sentence into the quiet room. "You're mine now." Logan blinked, not comprehending. Caleb finished peeling the apple with deliberate, methodical movements. He leaned forward, tapping the flat side of the fruit knife against Logan's cheek. He explained that now he was the only one who wanted Logan. He had saved his life, and now he would do with it as he pleased. When he was bored, he would break him, just as Logan had once done to him. Did he understand? The blade was cool and sticky with apple juice. It was a threat, but Logan didn't feel afraid. Perhaps because his mind was still foggy. He could hear the panic that had laced Caleb's voice when he'd found him unconscious, the desperate, pleading curses. "Don't you die. If you die, I'll have you made into a specimen and keep you in my bed forever." That had been the real threat. Logan extended his tongue, licking the sweet juice from the corner of his mouth, and smiled. "Caleb," he said, his voice a dry whisper, "I'm hungry." For a moment, Caleb's expression faltered, a flicker of stunned confusion crossing his features before the cold mask snapped back into place. He pressed the tip of the knife under Logan's chin. Or he purred, "I could feed you something else." During his hospital stay, Caleb never left his side. He took calls and handled business but never strayed far. Everything, from trips to the bathroom to changing his four, had to be done under his watchful eye. Logan was indifferent to the surveillance, but he grew frustrated with the liquid diet. His muscles atrophied, and the scent of real food from the hospital cafeteria was torture. One day, knowing a proper meal was out of the question, he meekly asked if he could have a smoothie. Caleb closed his laptop and leaned back on the visitor's sofa. He asked why he should grant the request, what was in it for him. There was nothing, of course. Logan lowered his gaze. "Please," he murmured. Caleb's eyebrows shot up. He said that was a pathetic way to ask for something, that Logan had to earn what he wanted. The next few days were a blur of calculated humiliation. His jaw constantly sore from Caleb's grip. Caleb would hold his neck, allowing no retreat, pushing him to the edge of breathlessness before yanking him back by the hair. Logan learned not to struggle, to just meet his gaze with pleading eyes. Caleb's expression during these moments had become cold and detached. The initial thrill of revenge was gone. He was getting bored. "Stay put," Caleb ordered one afternoon. "If you even think about running, I will hunt you to the ends of the earth." With that, he walked out. Logan slowly picked himself up from the floor, rinsed his mouth, and stared at his reflection in the mirror, wondering what would happen when Caleb's boredom finally turned to indifference. The moment the door closed, Caleb glanced back. Logan was still kneeling on the carpet, his back arched like a bow as he coughed. He looked so much thinner, lost in the oversized pajamas. A profound annoyance welled up inside Caleb. Why? Seeing the once proud, careless man reduced to this broken, begging creature should have been euphoric. It was the revenge he had fantasized about for 2 years. There had been a thrill at first, but seeing him pale and unconscious on the blood-soaked sheets had filled him with a terrifying, suffocating anxiety. It was a familiar feeling, the same helpless panic he'd felt 2 years ago when he was abandoned. He walked along the boardwalk, the sea breeze doing little to cool his inner turmoil. Logan had once told him he loved waking up to the smell of the ocean. That's why Caleb had worked relentlessly after college to buy this small condo. He stopped at a small juice stand. As the vendor poured clear coconut water into a cup and added a large scoop of ice, Caleb frowned. He told the vendor to make another one without ice. He explained that his partner couldn't have cold drinks. The vendor smiled, remarking on how thoughtful he was to his wife. Wife. The word echoed in Caleb's mind. Logan, who would now smile placidly if someone called him the vilest of names. That broken man didn't deserve such a gentle word. And yet, the word resonated, and an unspoken tension in his chest began to loosen. Maybe he thought he could be a little gentler. As long as Logan stayed by his side, obedient, there was time. A long time to slowly settle the score. With this thought, he opened the door to his home. The white curtains billowed in the breeze, casting fractured patterns of light on the floor. The television was playing a mindless variety show to an empty room. Logan was gone. Caleb stood frozen in the doorway. The coconut water and a bag of candied fruit slipped from his grasp, crashing to the floor. A wave of fury, hot and blinding, surged through him, the old, banked fires of betrayal roaring back to life. He should have known. Logan was a liar, a bastard who deserved no kindness. He should have broken his legs, chained him to the bed, made him nothing more than a toy. Trembling with rage, Caleb swore that when he found him. "Caleb?" A hesitant voice came from behind him. He turned, his body rigid, his eyes bloodshot with a fury that made Logan instinctively take a step back. The next second, he was slammed against the wall, Caleb's hand closing around his throat. "You thought you could run?" Caleb hissed, his voice a low growl. Where would you go? The pressure was immense. Black spots danced in Logan's vision. He was going to die. He struggled, forcing out a single strangled word. Figs. Caleb's grip loosened. The murderous intent in his eyes slowly receded as he looked down at the handful of green fruit Logan was clutching. It had been crushed into a pulp during the struggle. Logan let out a small, regretful sigh. His voice was hoarse as he explained that the people in the building across the way grew them. He remembered Logan's room service orders. Always figs. Caleb stared, a look of stunned disbelief slowly spreading across his face. After a long moment, he asked why Logan hadn't just told him. His voice was raw, as if he were the one who had been choked. Logan just glanced at him pointedly. Caleb seemed to remember the phone he had smashed to pieces. His lips pressed into a thin line. He asked where Logan got the money. Logan explained that the neighbors had given them to him for free, that they'd picked the biggest one just for him, promising it would be sweet as honey. He brought his palm to his nose, inhaling the sweet scent. Such a shame. Caleb watched him, then reached out and took Logan's wrist, guiding the pulpy fruit to his own mouth. He ate a piece. Logan watched, a daze settling over him. So he really did like figs. As he was wondering if he should risk going back for another, Caleb cupped his face and pressed their lips together. The kiss was sweet, just as he had imagined, maybe more so because of the bland diet he'd been on for so long. The sweetness was so precious it made him want to cry. They stumbled through the mess on the floor and collapsed onto the sofa. If it weren't for the sea breeze and the distant laughter from the television, Logan might have believed he was back in that penthouse suite 2 years ago, before he had thrown everything away, before Caleb had learned to hate him. They were just two people kissing because the moment felt right. Caleb pulled back, stared at him for 2 seconds, then kissed him again, more deeply this time. Get better soon, he murmured against his lips. Hidden from Caleb's view, Logan's lips curved into a faint smile. The test was a success. He was far from being bored. And Logan was far from being abandoned by the entire world. A week later, on a bright afternoon, Logan sat on the beach, sifting through the sand. He picked out a perfectly shaped seashell and placed it in Caleb's palm. A bribe, he said lightly, for one less round tonight. Caleb raised an eyebrow, the hint of a genuine smile touching his lips. But the smile froze. The rare softness in his expression vanished, replaced by a familiar mask of cold fury. His hand clenched into a fist, the sharp edges of the shell cutting into his palm. Blood trickled between his fingers. Logan, he snarled. You never disappoint. Logan followed his gaze and his own eyes widened. A few yards away stood Ethan, his expression complicated, flanked by several large men in dark suits. The bodyguards moved forward, forming a human wall between Logan and Caleb. Logan, Ethan began, his hand tightening on his phone. I got your message. I've been looking for you. A sense of dread washed over Logan. He instinctively reached for Caleb, but Caleb took a step back. His eyes filled with a self-mocking hatred that burned Logan to his core. I must be a fool, Caleb said, his voice laced with venom, to believe you, again and again. Are you satisfied? You always win. He turned and walked away without another word. That phrase echoed in Logan's mind. A person who has collected enough disappointment will not turn back. He felt a wave of dizziness and started to follow, but Ethan grabbed his arm. Logan shook his head, telling him the things he needed to say had already been said in his message. He had already apologized for loving him the wrong way, for the real and irreversible harm he had caused. He had wished him a future of beautiful tomorrows. Ethan's gaze dropped to the marks on Logan's collarbone, his brow furrowing. He knew what those marks meant. He asked if Logan was okay. Logan dismissed the question, asking why Ethan was really there. Ethan insisted his new partner trusted him completely. Logan glanced at the bodyguards and said nothing. "I was told you jumped from a pier," Ethan said softly. "Then the next day I got your message. Couldn't reach you." He let out a breath. "I'm just glad you're okay." Logan was surprised. He asked if Ethan shouldn't feel relieved that he was dead. Ethan admitted that's what he thought he would feel, especially when he was locked in the basement, praying for Logan's death. But when he finally woke up free, he just felt empty. His eyes grew distant. He explained that they had known each other since they were 8 years old. He recounted memories, Logan protecting him from a dog, taking the blame for a broken vase. "Love isn't a comfort, Logan," Ethan said, his voice quiet. "It's a nail hammered into your skull. One you accept willingly, one you bang your head against the wall to drive in deeper. The pain that came later, it wasn't just the nail's fault." He smiled, a flash of their shared past in his eyes. "What I mean is, it wasn't all on you. Live well, okay?" Back at the condo, the door was locked. Logan knew Caleb was inside. He called his name, telling him he'd found more figs, that he was hungry and thirsty and wanted Caleb to take care of him, even offering to add 2 more rounds to their nightly tally. The door finally opened and a hand shot out, pulling him inside and slamming him against it. "I let you go," Caleb said, his voice tight with restrained emotion. "Why did you come back?" Logan smiled and wrapped his arms around his neck. "Do you need a reason to come home?" Caleb tried to push him away, but Logan held on, pulling a handful of polished seashells from his pocket and offering them on his open palm. He repeated the words he'd said to Caleb 2 years ago, after he'd sobered him up from the drug. "Stay with me." The only difference was that 2 years ago, he had offered a black CR card. Now, he offered a handful of worthless shells and the tattered remains of his heart. Caleb's breath hitched. For a long, silent moment, he just stared. Then he crushed Logan against him. His kiss a storm of desperation and relief. It was the kiss of a predator finally claiming its prize. "I gave you a chance," he growled between kisses. "You're the one who didn't leave." "I'm not leaving," Logan gasped. "Never. Never." Later that night, Logan lay with his head on Caleb's arm, tracing patterns on his bandaged palm. He mentioned what Ethan had said. Caleb's arm tightened around his waist instantly. Logan quickly changed the subject, asking if the new Logan Industries on the market was his creation. Caleb admitted he'd managed to buy back a few smaller assets and an orphanage that had been a passion project of Logan's estranged father. Logan fell silent for a moment, then asked the question that had been lingering in his mind. "That night in the hotel, were you really drugged?" Caleb didn't answer with words. He simply kissed him, a deep, searching kiss that said everything. As he drifted off to sleep, Logan asked one last thing. "The day I was gonna jump, why were you there?" Caleb shouldn't have been there. He should have been at his fledgling company, the one he started with the $6 million, and then gone to dinner with a suitable match his friends had set him up with. He should have heard the news of Logan's death and felt a moment of detached melancholy before moving on with his life. But he hadn't. He had fought against the story, demanding to know why. If this was a redemption story, he and Logan were the only ones left unsaved. Why their love was a footnote, discarded and forgotten. The author, not understanding why a villain deserved redemption, had nonetheless offered another path. And so the story returned to the pier. Caleb ran, his heart pounding, and grabbed Logan's shoulder. It didn't matter if it was a calculated approach, if he was playing a long game. He loved him. He had loved him from the moment he first saw him as a boy at the orphanage. A bright, beautiful child holding the director's hand. It didn't matter if Logan didn't remember. He would make him remember. He would save him again and again. This was, after all, a redemption story.